morning. If it's morning where you are, it's morning where I am. Good morning. Welcome to our NBJ Live. This is our last NBJ Live of 2025. And we are NBJ and we are live on LinkedIn Live. And you're here with us, hopefully. Or maybe you're watching this later. And thanks either way. Thank you for joining us. And I'm here with my colleague, Erika Craft, market research analyst here at NBJ. I'm Bill Giebler. Content and Insights Director at NBJ, and we're wrapping up the year of uncertainty with a report. I'm calling it the year of uncertainty, really, when I look at the economy. There's been a lot of moving pieces in the economy, from consumer confidence, from consumer spending, housing cost, inflation, especially around frequent consumables like food. And then then you've got these tariffs. Perhaps you've heard some talk about tariffs and the impact on the industry and prices. And this is where you guys sit, right? You're in the industry, and what are you doing with your prices? What are the ingredient prices? How are brands taking that to the consumer or not? How are consumers reacting to that? So there's a lot there. And I want to show you a report that's coming out today. We just released this report. It's our market update and economic outlook report. And it goes into everything I just talked about and everything that we are about to talk about. Again, there are uncertain times that we sit in right now, and the year started off strong, and now consumers are a little hesitant, and what's going on there. So we did a whole bunch of research for the report. We're going to share a little bit of that research here with you today, and then we'll take questions. Drop your questions in along the way. We might hit them along the way, or we might hit them at the end. But we're this is what we're going to get into, and we'd love for you to be part of the discussion. So let me just set up the data kind of on a high level first. What we did for this report is we wanted to see a couple of different scenarios of how market sizing will play out. So first of all, what is market sizing? From NBJ's perspective, we look at the what, the where, and the why of supplement purchasing. What's being purchased, what ingredients, where are people buying it, and why are they buying it? What conditions are they buying? In this report, now that I set that up, we're really just talking about total volume, though. We didn't break it down as, no, that's not true, actually, Erika. Now that I say that, we did break it down by the what on a high level, the 6 categories we cover, and the where, the 6 channels that we cover. And so we broke that down in the report. What I'm showing you, what I'm about to explain on this chart, is just the overall industry. We're a $70 billion industry in 2025. And we set out to say, like, okay, things are changing in the economy. How would we update those numbers here at the end of 2025? And what we ended up doing was 2 different scenarios. One that's a light pullback from what we had previously stated, and one that was a more dramatic pullback from what we had previously stated. We didn't intend at first to only talk about pullbacks. We thought maybe, there could be an expansion in the market. But as we researched it, we realized, no, even our best case scenario is going to be probably less than what we said back in May with the supplement business report. Okay, so now let's look at this chart. Now that I've thrown all that at you, these gray bars on the chart moving across from 2025 to 2028, those gray bars are what we published back in May in the supplement business report. Those are dollars, and they align to that left axis in millions. So roughly around where it says 70,000 and 80,000, that's 70 billion and 80 billion. Trust me on that, but that's what 70,000 million is 70 billion. So that's how big we thought the market was going to be back in May. Now, as we look at it, we're like, oh, it's not going to be that good. There might be a slight contraction, and that's what that teal bar is, but there might be a more dramatic contraction. And that's what that light blue bar is. And what that means in 2025 is the industry, it doesn't mean a whole lot. The industry could be as much as $1 billion smaller this year than we previously thought. And that's with the dramatic contraction. but much more dramatically, by 2028, we think it could be $3.7 billion smaller. And that's that light blue bar in 2028. There's growth lines across there, if you didn't already have enough to look at. The blue line, which is pretty constant across there, is the growth rate we anticipated back in May. The orange bar is the contraction we see now as one possibility, and the dramatic economic pullback that's represented in the yellow bar. And so you can see various degrees of drop down. The biggest drop down happens in 2026, and then some degree of contraction. Now, I'll just say one more thing. We don't really think it's going to be either the light contraction or the dramatic contraction. We kind of, I think what we're going out with here at NBJ is these are kind of maybe the guardrails. Like the industry is going to land somewhere between those two lines, between the orange line and the yellow line, between the teal bar and the blue bar over the next 3 years. And why is that happening, and what are we going to do about it, and all of that is what we're going to get into in the rest of our time together this morning. So we said hi to Erika earlier. Let's hear a bit more from Erika on some of the consumer research we did for this report.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill. I think you did a good job explaining, the different scenarios that we came up with. And I think it's interesting to let people know too that, this wasn't, when we were doing research for this report, we're like, oh, we'll just kind of like update our numbers from SBR and kind of like see where we're at. But like you said, there's so much uncertainty. And so for us to just kind of give, one set of numbers didn't really feel, I don't want to say accurate, but it didn't feel like it would be serving, the industry and our clients best to really just give them one scenario. So I like that we kind of gave a range, and I agree. I feel like we might even fall somewhere between the SBR number and the yellow, but as obviously everybody knows, we don't know even how 2025 is going to end, and everything changes on a daily basis. Just check your phone and see all the different news that comes in. So while we're trying our best to do this kind of, crystal ball type prediction for the rest of this year, it's even more uncertain for 2026 and what happens. So, and with that, we wanted to, as we look at market sizing numbers and, publicly traded companies to kind of see how they're performing throughout the year. Another piece of this is the consumer research and kind of seeing where consumers are at. Now, granted, there are some differences between what consumers do and what they say. And so I feel like these reports, try to do a really good job at painting that full picture with having both. But when we were thinking about this too, we wanted to kind of capture those supplement user attitudes as well as general consumers, right? Because most, when we call general consumers, we basically mean we're not targeting or screening for a certain quality, whereas supplement consumers, we're targeting specifically those who take supplements. But both attitudes and interests and, sentiments are important for us and for, the brands in this space to kind of get an understanding of where everybody's at. So what we wanted to do too, and I'll kind of start off this slide also by talking about how this report is not super similar, but there's some similarities, I guess I could say, from we actually did a report in 2022, or was it technically, it was beginning of 2023, I think it was January. We did a similar report when there was a lot of uncertainty that year too, but it was more, maybe it was a little less uncertainty. Maybe it was more negative during that time. There was a lot of inflation. There was a lot of stress. There was a lot of pullback. We saw that huge market correction in the supplement industry, a lot less financings, a lot less going on. And so this time around, we're seeing, some pullback, but we wanted to kind of see the differences when we asked consumers back in 2022, their overall feelings about their financial situation and compare it to now, right? I feel like typically, when I have conversations with people in the industry, people compare, and the overall economy, honestly, people compare what's happening right now to the 2008 crash, and also with AI right now, like the dot-com bubble, to kind of see like some comparisons and to see like where we could go based on those. And so it's interesting to have that longitudinal data. So the takeaway on this slide is to kind of see that, okay, well, we're not as bad as we were in 2022. So I guess from a more positive outlook, that's one way to look at it, right?
Right, and that is a good positive way to look at it. It could be too, um, just so we don't stay too positive too long here.
Yeah.
Sorry. We're I think it's just a little early days right now
Mm,
versus at the end of 2022 when we did that research for the 2023 report. We were months into some economic hardship for large swaths of the economy. So people really were worse off and not better off. And right now
sure.
we're asking in what we did this in um, uh,
September.
September. And so, people just aren't feeling it. It could be yet, would be
Yeah.
that's what we don't know.
Right. Right. And yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see next year into 2026. I mean, there's again, we could talk about how it's so uncertain for so many different reasons, but I'll go ahead and move on to the next one. So, yes, there are still 22% of those who say they are worse off this year than they were last year, but looking at bigger picture, doesn't seem like it's as bad as it was in 2022. So now, so I believe those were overall, sorry, these were supplement consumers. So we're kind of going to oscillate between the two different surveys that we did. So we did supplement consumers and then general. So I'll try to be specific as to which group we're talking about. So this is taking a step back, talking about general consumers. So we wanted to kind of see, how is everyone feeling about tariffs, right? Everyone's talking about it. It comes up in conversation all the time, whether it's personal conversations, professional conversations, it's on the news, it's everywhere. And so are is it really impacting consumer purchasing yet? That seems to be the common theme here, right? Is it happening yet? It seems like it is, but we're not really sure. So overall, it looks like about 68% of general consumers say that it's impacting or affecting their purchasing habits, right? Whether it's trading down, not buying as many, choosing different brands, whatever that might be, which we'll get into in a little bit. And the report really dives into that. But overall, there seems to be some impact on these behaviors. So who knows what's going to happen in the next coming months?
And it is interesting because, right, I think it's something like tariffs. For a while it's just in the headlines and it's, we just know that it's out there happening, but at what point does it become an over there problem,
Mm,
over in Washington, over in industry, whatever that is, and at what point does it become a right here problem, and I
right.
think that's what we're seeing. It's like for 68% of folks, it's at least for 28% of them, it's a right here in my own wallet kind of problem. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
and we even get into in the report as well of like trying to understand like what that threshold of price sensitivity is too, because that came up, at Summit this year. It was like, at what point are people not willing to pay more for these price increases? At what point are you going to push your consumers into the other direction, looking for another brand or, not spending in general? And so there is some variability, of course, depending on the certain percentages that you use. And we didn't go up that high. I mean, most people, I think we found, aren't really going to pay more than a 20% increase, which makes sense. But some supplements, I'm thinking like $40 for some reason is coming up in my head. So that's like $8. And so
that's a lot.
that's, yeah,
That ain't nothing, right?
yeah.
I don't know, maybe you
So
were going to say that's not that much, but you put that across a handful of supplements that you're taking and it can really add up. Yeah.
yeah, and if you're anything like the two of us, Bill and I, we have many in our cabinet, so that will definitely add up. So,
Before you go on to the next slide, Erica, I want to address a question that came in from Douglas Jones.
mm,
Douglas said, I thought the 2022 study was more of a post-pandemic study of consumers than a precursor for today's. And the short answer, and maybe Eric has more comment, but the short answer is you're absolutely right. It wasn't intended as a precursor for anything. It was just when we realize once again the economy is struggling, we like to ask any question that can be looked at longitudinally. So since we asked that question, and I think there might be a few in this report that we asked back then, let's ask them again and see how today's economic uncertainty compares to 2022's economic uncertainty. I hope that addresses your question there, Douglas.
Yeah, and I think it definitely did have a COVID lens on the report in its entirety, as well as the consumer questions, but we did still ask, economic questions in that survey too. And so, like you said, Bill, where it felt applicable here, we asked the question again just to kind of see where people were. But yeah,
Yeah.
okay, awesome. Thanks for the question. Appreciate that. Okay. If you're like some people see charts like this and get really stressed out and like, I don't even know how to read that. There's a lot going on. So let me just go ahead and preface and say how to read this. So pretty much what we have over on the left there is no noticeable increase. I guess I should probably start with the question. So we asked general consumers, again, in the past 6 months, please indicate how much of a price increase you've noticed for each category, if at all, right? So when consumers are noticing a price increase, so there's a variety, right? This is kind of overall different categories, not specific to just supplements. There's groceries, you have utilities, medical care, entertainment, gas. So that large increase, right? That's where consumers are noticing most of a price increase. So you basically would add the orange and those purpley pink type bars. And so you can see that groceries, of course, a lot of consumers are noticing those price increases. But supplements seems to be a little bit lower when you're comparing these different categories, right? So you could take it and look at it two different ways. You could add those orange and purple bars, or you could look at the green bar where it says no noticeable increase. And you could see that 19%, I believe is what that says. Yes, 19% is among some of the higher percentages. It's not as much as medical care, which is interesting that medical care was that high because this was also in September. This was pre a lot of the healthcare conversations that have been going on in the government and all of those things. So it might be a little bit different now. But overall, it seems like supplements, it's not in that direction where it seems very extreme, where consumers are noticing those price increases. But that's also common to back in September. Not a lot of price, I believe, from what I've heard, has been passed on to the consumers yet. There is some, but I wouldn't say it'd be dramatic. So, all right, gonna
Yeah.
move on to the next. And this is also speaking to, the larger conversation that a lot of people are talking about, right? What are consumers doing? How are their purchases, being different from week to week, month to month? Are they trading down? Are they spending less? Are they stopping taking supplements? What we basically asked was, so we're back to supplement consumers. We asked them, of those who have noticed either a little, a lot, or a moderate price increase in supplements, we asked them, in response to rising supplement prices, have you traded down to more affordable options? Select one. So as you can see, almost 40% say they're buying the same brands at the same frequency. So that's great, but there's still, 60% who say they are changing their behavior in some way. And so that varies whether it's switching to store brand, private label, switching from premium to lower cost, buying more at those Costco warehouse type places for a better cost per unit, really reducing their dosage. Maybe they're taking it, every other day, every third day. But I like to end on positive notes. Still only 4% are stopping their regimen altogether. So I think that's mostly not the only thing we want to know, but I think that's definitely going to anchor us coming into the next year or so.
I think so too. I think this is really an interesting slide, and I think we'll kind of just hang out here for a while. In fact, it's our
Mm,
last slide, I believe. And so it's one thing that really catches my attention here is that 7%, only 7% of the surveyed population here said, I'm just going to take fewer supplements. I'm either going to take
mm,
less of what I'm taking, or I'm going to take um, less one way or another. I'm going to take fewer supplements, or I'm going to take less of the ones I'm taking. Only 7% said that. Everyone else, let's see, 23 plus 16 plus 8, those people are looking for other alternatives, trading down to cheaper brands or buying bigger sizes to save some money. And that's really interesting. And then of course the really great news is the 39% who are so far not changing their habits. They're just buying what they're buying. Now, we don't know what they were buying to be. Maybe there is no trading down from where they were, right? We didn't get that
Sure.
granular with them, but it's overall a positive slide, and it's fairly aligned with what we found in 2022, what we saw in 2008 during the Great Recession. It's just it's something that that we see pretty consistently, is that supplements, between this and the previous slide, we see that supplements, the consumers really value their supplements during these times.
Yeah, and another thing that I liked that we did in this report too was we got at like general consumers. We asked about like health and wellness spend, to because right, like if you ask supplement users, you could argue we didn't ask this granularity, but are kind of bought into it, right? They're purchasing, they're bought into the benefit of supplements for them and their health, right? But what we wanted to know is those general consumers, whether they're supplement users or not, what were their thoughts on health and wellness spend, especially during economic stress? Are they going to pull back, and do they still value that benefit of supplements? I think there's an industry average that like general consumer, like 6 or 70% plus or minus a little bit, take supplements, right? So that's still a good chunk of people. And so are they still going to be choosing to spend money on health and wellness, whether that's supplements or health tech or food and beverage, or there's a lot of different categories. And so overall, though, it still seemed pretty positive that people are still bought into and understand the value and are willing to put money towards supplements that help their health. And
And
I
we
think that
often
that
ask
speaks to it too.
yeah, right. And I think we've probed into this in this report, and certainly in the past, the perception that taking supplements is in the long run
Mm,
less expensive than getting sick, and in the short run, just 3 days of missed work because of the flu is worth avoiding, and then
mm.
longer, more chronic. Uh, I guess I can say it here. You just can't say it. Disease avoidance, um, is something that's on people's minds, right? And well, I thought it was interesting on the previous slide, only 12% of supplement users, or of the general population, said, I don't use these things. Like they were NA.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
right. So
Yep.
that, of this population that we captured, 998 people, it looks like, 88% of them do take supplements, and that seems high, but it stands to reason that that percentage is growing. From the like 72 to 75 that we saw a couple of years ago, and that CRN consistently
Hmm.
reports around there too, and that number is growing, and it's interesting to see. Send us your questions. We've got a few more minutes here, and we'd love to ask audience questions. And in these last few minutes.
Yeah. I think another thing, that went into our research behind this report, and one thing anyone can do in their own time, but when you look at a lot of the publicly traded companies and how they've performed throughout the year, they don't typically release a report until early the next year. But you can look at press releases in the US and kind of see, how different brands are performing. And overall this year, there's a mix, right? And there's price that you look at, there's sales, there's volume, and different brands are operating, in different ranges. But I'd say overall growth is around modest to is modest flat. There are some categories that are negative, but overall, I'd say that the theme is flat growth to really low growth this year. And obviously, we don't know what's going to happen for 2026. A lot of these brands do have these more mass market multivitamin, really basic formulas. And I feel like this comes up in conversation, and Bill and I were talking a little bit about this earlier, where there's almost two different consumers in a supplement consumer base. There are your more basic supplement regimen consumers. They're going to go to Costco and buy their Nature's Bounty. They're going to go to Target and buy their Ollies. And they might not be as, I'm making a thesis here. They might not be as bought into their regular routine as someone who's going and buying thorn products or pure encapsulation products, or enter in your other premium type of brand here, right?
Yeah.
And so what I see a lot on the internet and on LinkedIn and hear people talking about is that there are still a lot of consumers that are choosing these more premium products. So you're kind of having different things that are happening that are almost balancing us to that flat type of growth, right? You have more people who are buying these premium and then less people who are buying those maybe more value brands, but it's there's a lot that's going on, and so it's kind of hard to really, be in this seat and try to gauge and predict
It is.
where
It's
that
so
leaves us.
interesting. I think I kind of feel like, and I think we said this a couple of years ago too, when we were like back in 2022, maybe it's almost like people are going up or down, like let's now's the time to really focus on my health and buy those premium brands, stick with those premium brands. Or now's the time to really trade down to the store brands, kind of go generic and save some money. Go back to the final slide, if you would. I think
Sure.
I so it's almost, and this is, we don't have data to show this, but it's almost like that middle, not the value brands. And I was just talking to Tom Arts this morning, founder of NBJ and founder of NBA, Nutrition Business. What's the A?
Advisors.
Advisors. Thank you. And he was talking about he's like really closely tuned into some of the value brands, and they're growing rapidly, he was saying. So I think that does point to one thing that's happening, and that trading down, right? That 23% of the market, if they're shifting down to value brands, of course those value brands are going to do well in that environment. What are they shifting down from, though? Are they from the super
Right.
premium brands or from something kind of in between? And so that maybe the premium brands are going to hold in there a little, and ingredients are going to hold a little stronger. Time will tell. It's hard to say.
Yeah, and it also depends on how you define premium, right? People define premium in different ways. So there's a little bit of a variance there. Um, but yeah, I think I agree that I think consumers are choosing certain categories maybe to trade down, but I still feel like, these more specialty led formulas are doing quite well. And I think that consumers really truly are looking for those products that have the science to back it, that have the effectiveness and the quality that people are looking for and searching for, to know that, when I'm taking a supplement and spending my money on it, I know I want it to work. I want to know that it's working. And there are some products where you can tell that it works. If it's a stress ashwagandha product, you're like, oh yeah, I can feel it. And then there's others where you can't as much. And so it's going to be happening in different categories, and we kind of go through that in this report of, is herbs going to go down, or is specialty going to go down, vitamins, etc. We don't have enough time to go over that right now, but
I'll hint at
yeah.
it though, because we did get a question. Emma Dunstone Brown. Hello, Emma. Disaster avoidance is a huge motivator. How do we see this playing across categories? Well, I'll just say this, because it is a lot to go into, but it's in our predictions, vitamins, minerals, and sports are holding the strongest, and herbs, meal replacement, and specialty suffer a little more. And so that again points to people really looking to the basics.
Mm.
If we call sports nutrition a basic, and I could make a case for doing that, right? So that's a little hint to how we see it playing out across categories.
Yeah, it also takes into consideration too, the tariffs as well, right? Is there like the consumer behavior of, yes, more consumers might be taking herbs and specialty, but with the tariffs and the costs associated with that, that could also, really impact. So
That's a good point too. Those are the categories most likely, in some cases, most likely
yeah.
to get hit by the current tariff situation. So thanks for the question, Emma. And we're coming up on time here. I just want to say, talking to Tom this morning, one of the points he made was, we often talk about the supplement industry being recession proof, and I think most of us can agree now that it's not recession proof. Tom said I wouldn't even call it recession resistant, which is just a subtle difference, I suppose. But the supplement industry is recession resilient, and I think that resilience as an overall industry, it shows that it's like we move pieces around and people buy different ingredients and then different qualities from different locations. And as an industry, it's quite resilient, and we're not going to see really dramatic change. I don't know if I said this before. We do, yeah, I said the $3.7 billion delta between earlier projections and what might happen in 2028, according to our most dramatic. But where I'm getting as an overall industry, that's not that big of a deal. It's going to hit individual companies, individual ingredient suppliers, or individual retailers, or individual brands that are maybe in the middle there, like I was suggesting before. So as an overall industry, I think we've got a really a pretty positive picture, and then the way it breaks out across channels and across categories that's where you see a little more strategic planning is necessary. If you're in one of the challenged categories, in one of the challenged channels, it's time to get really strategic, and so forth. So yeah, there's a picture of the report. At least I see it here. Market economy and economic outlook. That's available on our store today, and it goes into much more detail than we did, and with commentary and a lot more survey, a lot more depth in the survey, and then of course the depth into the categories and the channels. And so take a look at that report. Hopefully you'll buy it. That's what we want. And hopefully people will keep on buying their supplements. It looks like they will.
Yeah.
Are we good? I think we can wrap there then. Any
I
closing
think
statements,
so.
Erika?
No, I think that's it. I think as an analyst, it's going to be an interesting next couple of months, especially with the holidays coming around. We'll see if more people decide to buy more and buy gifts for their loved ones. And yeah, there's still a lot to watch over the next couple months, and excited to be in this seat to watch it unfold.
Me too. Me too. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in 2026 at our next NBJ Live. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.